Welcome to Classrooms Beyond Borders, a day in the life. I'm your host, Cami Cannikins. I'm an educator from Canada, and I know that access to quality education isn't a level playing field. In this podcast, we're going on a journey to explore the realities of schooling in less developed nations. Join me as we explore the real lives of teachers, students, and community leaders in less developed nations and discover how their experiences can challenge and inspire us all. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Esther Musonda, and Esther is coming to us from the north of Zambia. So hello, Esther.
Hello, Kami. Thank you so much for a great opportunity. This one is. Okay, so just like Kami has mentioned, my name is Esther Musonda. I come from Zambia, and I am a teacher in a northern part of Zambia. Okay, so I have been in Northern Province. I think this is my 60th year. I came here, this was my first appointment. Yes, from Lusaka, the capital. So I moved in to the northern part of Zambia. Okay, so actually my school, it has been my first and only school from the time I came here. It's Chitambi Day Secondary School. We call it, it's a peri-urban school, meaning it's not a typical rural school. Neither is it an urban school. So these schools are different. When you talk of an urban school, I think the infrastructure in an urban school is way better. You talk of the pupils themselves, and you find that in an urban school, they choose the best that Zambia can actually offer in terms of pupils. They go to the urban schools, and we have the peri-urban, which is in the middle. Okay, and we have a rural school. So when we talk about a rural kind of arrangement, we are talking about where it is, I think, almost even 50 kilometers away from town. It is very far. It is in the interiors, such that that's why we call it rural. And such those people that are in the rural areas actually get rural hardship. Just from the word rural hardship, if you're getting rural hardship, it must be hard where you are. So my school is peri-urban. We don't actually even get rural hardship because it's not as bad as our friends who are in the rural areas.
So tell us a little bit about, let's go with how many students are at your school? How many teachers? What's the age of the students or the pupils at your school?
Okay, so in total, including our headmaster and our deputy, we have a total of 22 members of staff, and we have a total of 700 pupils. So we start from our school, the secondary school, so we get pupils that are from primary section and then have graduated to secondary. So from grade 8, grade 9, 10, 11, 12. So depending on maybe how some grades have got 2 classes, and some grades have got 1 class each. So for the grade 8, we start from grade 8, we get 2 classes for grade 8, 2 classes for grade 9, and then we have 2 classes for grade 10, and we have 1 class for grade 11. So in terms of infrastructure, so currently we moved, I think 2 years ago, we used to share the classroom blocks with our primary friends. That's Chitambi Primary. I'm at Chitambi Secondary. So we used to share. So now we had an organization that actually helped us build a 1x4. I think it's called Solemn Foundation. They helped us build a 1x4 classroom block. So that's the one we are currently using. So meaning we have not completely shifted from the primary section. A few of our grades are actually at the primary section, and most of our grades have actually moved to the new block that has been built. And of course, we have an uncompleted 1x2, which is still occupied by other grades, but it's not complete.
So, Esther, I'm doing the math in my head about the number of 700 students and how many pupils you have in each kind of section or grade. Does my math compute that you probably have class, like 50 or more students in class at a time? Is that right?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
So
yes, that's correct.
How many would be typical?
And so we have other grades. Other grades, you can have 70, 80. Yes, other grades have got 70, 80. I think the least that we can have in a class is somewhere 40. That should be the least of pupils.
So for you as a teacher, when you are teaching, have 50, 60, 70 students at once that you are in charge of?
Yes, that's more like it. And you can imagine sometimes you have all these characters from different backgrounds, and there's a certain intake that we had last year, our grade 12 for last year. There were like 8. We had 2 classes for grade 12, 80 in here, 80 in here. They were notorious, I tell you. They were uncontrollably. You can just imagine. And you know what they did was very sad. During exams, they rose to say, you teachers are not showing us what, and they broke windows. You can imagine what they did. Because there were too many. They were overwhelming even for us. And we had to call the police.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, we had to call the police on them because they were stoning teachers. There were just so many to actually control. So I think moving forward, we have agreed, let's reach a certain number. Let's say if it's 70 below, because if they are more than 70, sometimes they are so uncontrollably. We can't even control them ourselves.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, so you mentioned your intake, and I'm wondering, are your students all the same tribal background, or do you have students that come from different tribal backgrounds, different languages, or are they all quite the same?
Okay, so this part of Zambia, which is the northern part, is predominantly a Bemba-speaking province. So it's predominantly occupied by the Bembas.
Okay.
Okay, I'm actually Bemba by tribe. So we can have other people from other provinces that can come, but you find that 80% of the school was going to be dominated by the Bemba speaking, because northern province is dominated by the Bembas. You find southern province, it's a Tonga speaking province. So you find that in schools like southern province, you find it is predominantly people that speak a Tonga language. But of course, we have people that are from other provinces, but they are few as compared to. So the owners of that language, of that province, dominate the schools.
Okay, so now in your daily school life, would the pupils and staff, do you speak English during the day, or do students speak Bemba when they're not in class? What does that sound like?
Okay, so our pupils, because of the background of our pupils, we have to mix. When teaching, I can't speak English throughout, because my pupils are just going to be looking at me like, what is she talking about? So I am forced, when I say something in Bemba, in English rather, I'm supposed to translate it in Bemba. Yes, it has to be translated in Bemba for those pupils that are not fluent in English. So I have to mix. So when I just came, I had a challenge. Pupils used to complain, no, Madam Sonda speaks a lot of English throughout. We can't get what she's saying. So along in moving forward, I learned now to adapt. Whenever I speak English, the silence in class tells me I need to code switch. Just the silence itself reminds me to say, there's something wrong here. I quickly say what I said in Bemba, then I get, okay, there's interaction there and so on. So we don't have a situation where you completely speak English, especially for my school.
So what courses or subjects do you teach, Esther? Like, do you teach mathematics? Do you teach language arts? Do you teach science?
I have been qualified to teach civic education and history. So my major is civic education and my minor is history. So because of not enough staffing at my school, I now teach social studies, because social studies is a combination of history and civic education. It has 3 subjects: history, geography, and civic education. So I was given those classes because I have 2 of the courses that I did at college. And we also have a senior class. Last year, we had a class that used to take history only. So I'll teach history, I'll teach civic education. Those 2 are my subjects. And the combination of my subjects, we call it social studies.
Did you know, Esther, in Canada, that's what we call it as well, social studies.
Okay.
So,
wow, that's nice. Something in common.
I've been a social studies teacher as well. I also teach English language arts, but I've spent most of my career teaching social studies as well. So, Esther, you mentioned that you have a new building that you're moving into.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Where I'm in Canada, every building it's very, very cold. It's minus 20 Celsius here today. So we have to have doors and windows that close tight, and we try to keep warm. Lots of schools in the United States would be similar, but they'd also have, school buildings that the doors open to outside, and there's outside spaces and hallways. Can you tell us a little bit about infrastructure? Like, what would be some of the building materials? Tell us about your washroom facilities. Do you have a gymnasium space or an outdoor football pitch? Tell us a little bit about what your campus would be like.
Okay, so because our school is a peri-urban, so meaning it doesn't have much to offer. Okay, so I will start with our uncompleted 1x2, which currently it's being used, but it has no windows, it has no doors. And so especially in rain season, that's a challenge for our pupils. So they have to be pretty warm. And when it's windy, you find, because there are no windows, okay, it's not complete. So that's more like it for the 1x2. But for the 1x4, it's okay. The windows are there, the doors are there. It's just like any normal classroom, nothing fancy about it. So the washroom that we have, it's not like these normal bathrooms that people have. No, it's most, I don't know if you have seen that, we call them pit latrines.
Yes.
Yes, those are the ones that actually are found in peri-urban schools as well as rural schools. An exception usually is made for urban schools. I think you can't find an urban school with a pit latrine. No, urban schools have proper flushable toilets. So in a peri-urban, we find our washrooms are just like pit latrines. We don't have like a bathroom.
So for our North American audience, we might use the term outhouse.
Okay.
And so because I know lots of our listeners won't be familiar with what pit latrine is, and so that's a huge difference. And so, what about outdoors? I know football is huge in Zambia, and I know that your father was a football player. Do you have a big pitch, like a big field outside? And is that grass or dirt, or what does that look like?
Okay, so just like you have mentioned, football is a big deal for even just for people living in the peri-urban or rural areas, because it's another form of entertainment. Especially I'll give an example for our friends that are in the rural areas, because it's in the interiors. They really don't have much to do on weekends. So you'll find that people on weekends, they organize themselves, and it's huge. You just find a match between two neighboring schools are playing football, and it is huge. So for my school, we do have a football pitch. It's not as big, so it's a mixture of just normal ground, so to say. There's grass there, and so like this, it's rainy season, so you find the grass has actually grown. So we need to clear the grass for us to actually access the pitch. But of course, we have a pitch, but it's not as big. Okay, so it's a normal ground, where pupils can just have their sporting activities here and there.
Now, Esther, in schools in North America for younger students, outside there might be like we would call it a playground. So there might be a swing set or equipment that they can climb around on. Do you have anything like that at your primary school nearby?
Okay, our primary school doesn't have that facility. So that facility is common mostly in private schools.
Okay.
Yes, you find swings in private schools. You find so many activities for the children when they're on break time and just for them to relax. But government schools or even my primary school nearby, it doesn't have that facility. It's just a normal ground where pupils are just running, up and down.
Got it. Yep.
Just play.
So tell us about time or the hours that you spend in school. So what is the start time and the end time? How many days of the week do pupils attend?
Okay, so we have 5 days in a week that I go for work. Pupils come to school. So our lessons start at 7:20. Lessons begin. So we have 7:20 up until 10:50. That's break time. So pupils have 20 minutes break up to 11 hours. So that's the second session, 4 periods. to about 13:40. So 13:40, that's lunchtime. So lessons end at 13:40. So at exactly 14 hours, we have got prep time. That's we do remedial work, and we have time to just catch up with the learners. So we are there up to 15:30. So that's when we all knock off at 15:30 together with the learners and as well as the teachers themselves. Yeah. So for me, I get up, I think I start off from home as early as 6:40 for me to get to work around that time. Usually I'm there by 7:30. Sometimes I'm late. Let's start at 7:20, but sometimes I'll find myself there at 25, at 30. So at most 7:30, I should be at work.
That's a long school day. Does your school provide a meal at all for students, like a lunch or anything, or students bring their own? How does that work?
So we don't have a feeding program, especially for secondary schools. So the school does not provide food for our learners. Learners as well as teachers, they have to cater for their own lunch and breakfast.
And tell us about getting to school. So how would a student make their way? How would they travel to school? How would a typical teacher travel to school? Your school starts early. What does that look like to actually physically get there?
Okay, so I'll start with the learners. Our learners actually walk there. At first, when I walked, I was like, no way, this is crazy. Like literally walking when I walked for the first time, I think I walked for 1 hour 30. My legs, you can imagine, my legs were hurting. That was the first experience for me. And I asked one of the learners, how do you do this? You do this all the time. They're like, no, madam, we are used. So for them, they walk for 40 minutes. So they walk for at most 40 to 50 minutes for them to get there, and they're used. And for like a typical teacher, okay, so most of our teachers at our school have bought bicycles, so they use bicycles, and some of them actually have motorbikes. And of course, we have got a few that have good vehicles, but there are very few that have good vehicles. So mostly it's motorbikes, bicycles, and walking. Of course, there are some teachers that can't even afford maybe a bicycle, a motor bike. They opt to walking. So meaning they have to walk almost an hour plus to walking.
That sure makes for a long day. Esther, I'm wondering also about what's the electricity supply like? I know in different parts of Zambia and in lots of different African countries lately, electricity blackouts have been an issue when there's just times with no electricity. How does that affect your school?
Oh, yes. So as we are speaking, I'm thinking we are going to have power tomorrow morning at 5. So this issue of electricity, I think is countrywide. We do experience load shedding, like think for almost 8 hours plus, depending on the areas. So at my school, because it's a newly built secondary school, we don't have power yet. But for the primary section, because it was built some time back, so the primary section has got electricity. And the surrounding areas also have power. Yes.
So are the power outages on a schedule? So you know that the power is going to be out at, let's say, 1600 hours, or is it just random and there the power went?
Okay, so the schedule is according to the week. So they'll give you this week, you maybe are going to have power during the day. So meaning you won't have during the night. The following week you won't have power during the day, you're going to have it at night. So it alternates. Yes. So we have an idea. It's not random, but we have an idea to say, okay, we had power the whole of last week during the day. So this week won't have power during the day.
So Esther, what does that look like as far as the ability to use any type of technology at your schools, whether it be computers or anything like that? Tell us about access to any kind of technology for the staff or the students.
Okay, so because of power, we're not completely disadvantaged. We have access to the primary section. In as much as we are two different schools, but we work together. in terms of even electricity. We share electricity. So we have a certain classroom that was used that has power. So that means our learners that have computer studies, and we had a few computers, 2 or 3, just forgotten the organization that donated some computers to us. So using that classroom block from the primary section, our learners are able to access computers. Yes, and of course, our teachers also have access to the computers through the primary section. No, not computers, but a computer. There's a computer for our school that has been actually put at the primary section.
So as far as having like a computer device, would every staff member have their own computer? Do you share computers? What would that look like?
No, computers are actually shared, but not all our friends can actually have access to getting a computer for themselves. So once you have a privilege of having a computer, you have maybe 2 colleagues that would want to type their tests, that want to do this and that. So obviously ask for your computer and they'll work on it while it's at school. And some of them, if they want to take it over at their home and bring it the following day, provided they keep it properly. So not everybody has got access to computers. Yes, it is actually shared.
And so then internet access or Wi-Fi access, I might think that you would have to access from your personal card or your personal device if you want to go on the internet on your computer, for example.
Yes, that's a personal arrangement.
So the school in North America, most schools would provide an internet or a Wi-Fi connection. I'm guessing that's not the case.
No, that is not the case here.
In fact, it's making you giggle, the thought of that even, hey?
Yes, the thought of that, I'm like, what? Why did internet? Oh, wait. Okay.
So that's such a great quote from you that shows how different our educational worlds are. In North America, one of our, we're talking about things like artificial intelligence, and we're worried that our students are going to use their personal devices to use artificial intelligence to, maybe write an essay for them. And so I imagine that that's not an issue with your students.
Not at all. That's not an issue. We don't have to worry about that just yet.
One of the last things maybe we could chat about is, if you feel comfortable, is can you tell us a little bit about the sense of compensation or wages or salary? That often is a really, eye-opening thing for us to learn about. Do you feel comfortable giving us a sense of that?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to bring to your attention that the wages or salaries in Africa, I think particularly in Zambia, is way different from North America. Yeah, especially in Zambia. I think being a teacher, it is just now that actually teachers are being recognized. I remember growing up, I actually didn't want to be a teacher because I would see I would hear stories of how they were least to actually even their salaries were the least. They were not recognized at all. So the last thing that I wanted, even as I was thinking about what to do, I was like, I can be anything but not a teacher. Because people made fun of teachers. That making fun of teachers started just from the salary they got, the wages they got. But I think it was in 2016 that we had a president. He actually increased the salaries of teachers to 100%. I think teachers have actually been recognized. But in as much as their salaries were raised to 100%, we talk about people that work in government. Teachers are actually at the bottom.
Okay.
In Zambia, yes. So you find in Zambia, there is more recognition of a doctor, an engineer, and so all those careers, and the teacher is actually at the bottom.
So would you get paid monthly or weekly? So how many kwacha would you receive on a paycheck?
Okay, so roughly my basic salary, I'll use an example of my basic salary, but my basic salary is different because I'm actually a degree holder. I'm actually a degree holder, so my salary scale is I. So I have those of my friends whose salary scales are F and G, so meaning they're a bit lower. So we have people that get 5,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000. So when you are in my salary scale, which is I, so at least you get something like 8,000 in a month.
And that's kwacha?
That's kwacha. Yes, 8,000 kwacha.
It's been a while since I've been to Zambia, so my kwacha to US dollar brain isn't on right now.
I think it should be less than, let me see how much $200 is. Okay, so yes, $200 is like 5,200. So we have teachers that are in a different salary scale get like $200 a month. And then if we have certain director salary scales, they get $300. Okay, and then we also have, I think for me, I would be somewhere $350.
And so as having a university degree, you would be at the top, toward the top of the pay scale then.
Yes.
As we wrap up from our delightful conversation here, Esther, one of the challenges you talked about is teachers facing recognition and not being looked down upon because you were teachers. What are some of the other challenges that teachers face in your community or in Zambia?
So from that lack of recognition, it is coupled with maybe low salaries. Low salaries comes with where they can't have access to so many things that they wish they had access to. So that poses as a challenge. Because of the low wages, they can't afford even to get even a vehicle. I have been working for 6 years, and in as much as I saved up, it couldn't still be enough. After saving up for 3-4 years, I was like, I think I'll save forever. So that's the challenge that teachers actually face. We also have an issue of upgrade. We have those of our teachers that upgraded. Okay, they've moved. Maybe when the teachers started, they were at a certificate. They went to school, upgraded themselves, but the salaries are not yet upgraded. So you find somebody could have gotten a loan for them to be upgraded in the hope that, okay, I think once I'm done with school, immediately my salary is going to be upgraded, maybe to a position of a degree holder. But lo and behold, you find that the person is working 5 years still on the same salary scale. I've interacted with some of my colleagues that haven't been upgraded. It's very frustrating on their part, So they hope that if salaries were upgraded, maybe even to an I salary scale, certain problems, would actually be sorted out because of an increased salary.
That can be so hard to have to go forward knowing that you're not being paid what you're worth. As we finish up, let's just shift over to students, Esther. And when you think about the students that are going to graduate from your high school in Zambia or your secondary school, what are some of the most important skills that you think they need to leave with to succeed in life? Or what are some of your biggest hopes or dreams for them? Or are there maybe things that you think that they're leaving school with that they're missing out on? Tell us a little bit about.
Okay, so for my learners, I think for them to succeed, we are moving in a technological world. I think first and foremost, we cannot overemphasize the importance of our learners learning how to use a computer, because now everything is computerized now. So I hope that as our learners graduate from grade 12 and they go in society, my hope is that at least they have a skill. They are computer literate, because they're able to actually compete with people. So aside from them actually having a skill of being computer literate, they need to have other skills. You understand that not all pupils have got that knowledge for school. And as much as you can teach and just explain in so many different languages, there are some that wouldn't get it. So my hope is that if those learners that can't completely get the concept of school, why can't they go out there with a carpentry skill? They go out there with an electronic skill, plumbing skill, a bricklaying skill, so that in as much as not everybody is going to have a white collar job, I hope that our education system rather would be hands-on kind of arrangement and so many things that they can do just to survive. It's hard out there. Waste more if you've got no skill. It's even worse.
Does your school offer carpentry class or some of those hands-on skills? Like, are there courses that students can learn those things at school? Or would you just expect that they're learning in the community or from their parents?
Okay, My school doesn't offer that. So other schools do offer. Like in the peri-urban schools, that's why I think in my first statement I had mentioned to say there's a very big difference between an urban school, a peri-urban, and a rural urban. So I think more concentration is actually focused on an urban school. You find that an urban school has got more like a workshop. There's a subject called woodwork, okay, fabrication, and so on. So those are subjects they teach learners to work with their hands. Mostly those equipments are actually found in the urban areas. You hardly find those in the rural areas because we don't have equipments for those kind of subjects. So pupils that have got access have got a great opportunity because as they go, they are going to have that knowledge, not only to learn what school has to offer, but they can learn carpentry, bricklaying, and plumbing, and so on.
We've had a nice conversation and we have learned so much about school in another part of the world. Esther, thank you for your generous time and your lovely stories about the school that you work at in the northern part of Zambia. So huge thanks, and we just wish you a great end to your school year.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I had a great time too sharing the story.
You have been listening to Classrooms Beyond Borders. We hope this episode has offered a valuable perspective on education in a part of the world that may be very different from your own. I hope these conversations spark a desire to learn more about the world, to engage with global issues, and to consider how you can contribute to more equitable and just education for all. Check the show notes to see if there is a specific suggestion for supporting the school in this episode. Join us next time for another journey beyond borders to another classroom with another incredible teacher. Subscribe to Classroom Beyond Borders wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.